One of the first considerations we should have before setting up for the squat is foot placement. What's the ideal foot placement for you based on your abilities, your posture, your goals and priorities? Now, one tool that comes from Dr. Stewart McGill is to hop up and down and see what foot placement you naturally assume. The assumption here is that people will naturally gravitate towards the most anatomically advantageous position when they hop up and down. Otherwise, there's a number of different things to consider. We could consider having a very narrow stance on the squat. So a very narrow stance is going to bias a little bit more of the thighs, and it puts a little bit more emphasis on spinal extension, just keeping the torso upright and working all those muscles. You could go with a mid stance with the feet just about slightly wider than shoulder width apart. Or if you go with a wide stance, you put more emphasis on the hips, and it's a little bit easier to keep the torso upright. A wide stance may also work a little bit more of the groin if that's a training priority for you. So we want to pick a foot placement that's going to work well for you. The other thing to think about is the angle of our feet. So we could have them pointing 0 to 5 degrees outward. So basically pointing forward for the most part. That's going to bias a little bit more of the hip internal rotators. You could go with about 15 degrees outward, and that's a more common approach for the squat. And then a tip that comes from Ken Wedham, who squats over 1,000 pounds, is to have the feet turned out 30 degrees, because that helps to switch on more of the hip external rotators, the glutes. And the glutes are very powerful muscles for squatting. So that will help give us some options for angling the feet. Now, when you are squatting, we do want to keep even foot pressure. So I might say this, even foot pressure, Pedja, even foot pressure, okay? Oftentimes when people squat, a common compensation is that they'll just collapse the feet inward. So you might have to tell them to pull the arches up. So I might say, pull your arches up when you go, pull your arches up when you go. And then another thing is that a lot of times people have a tendency through the feet to push off through the ball of the foot, and that doesn't necessarily help us squat as best as we can. So you may want to emphasize pushing through the heels on the way up, okay? Even foot pressure, push through the heels on the way up. That's it. Even foot pressure, push through the heels on the way up. Perfect. So those are some different coaching cues to help you set up the most optimal foot placement for your squats.